In today's video, we have a combination of things to cover. We have some latest NHL trade chatter surrounding Artemi Panarin and Justin Faulk. We have some additional notes to add to the Jeff Skinner trade. Plus, we have some more RFA signings to discuss. All that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top here, we have a combination of things to cover, including some trade rumors, some signings, and some additional notes to add to the Jeff Skinner trade that went down earlier this weekend here. Now let's jump in and take a look at a couple of the signings that happened. Now one happened yesterday, which happened right around the time our other video was posted, so we didn't get the information in time, but the Dallas Stars have come to terms with Gemel Smith on a one-year deal valued at $720,000. Now, he's been with the organization for some time. He was drafted back in 2012. He did get into 46 games last season, put up 11 points. He's got about 3 years experience at the American Hockey League level, so he's still trying to fight and become a regular NHL player, which still remains to be seen if that's going to happen. So this gives him another short-term deal to try to prove himself and gain a regular spot in the Stars lineup. So obviously this is a low-risk move for the team. It's obviously a little risky for the player's part, but getting a one-year deal at this stage of his career is probably the best he's going to get. So all in all, I think it's pretty fair for both sides, and we'll see if Gemel Smith could become a regular player in the 18-19 season. The other more notable signing happened earlier this morning here on Saturday. Wild Bill, William Karlsson, the Vegas Golden Knights have come to terms. They had their arbitration hearing scheduled for today, and just right before things were getting underway here, they came to terms on a one-year contract valued at $5.25 million. It was speculated that they were quite a ways apart on a contract, which led to the arbitration hearing. Obviously, they knew going into arbitration it was likely going to end in a one-year deal, so they come to terms on a one-year deal on their own to avoid that whole process, which kind of similar to what happened with Mark Stone yesterday in Ottawa, and he gets a contract for $5.25. Now, as we know, Wild Bill, William Karlsson had a tremendous year, by far a breakout season, smashed all his previous statistics. Obviously, with Karlsson playing on the top line for Vegas and getting a much larger opportunity, really propelled him into stardom this past year. Put up 43 goals. His previous high was 9. So obviously, that's a tremendous improvement here. So I guess the big question is, can he keep it up? Can the Vegas Golden Knights keep it up? That's going to be the big question going into the next season. Obviously, they were by far the biggest story last year. A little bit of a Cinderella story, obviously, with how far they came in their inaugural season. A lot of the players refer to themselves as the Golden Misfits because they were obviously not protected by their previous teams in the expansion draft, and they kind of made the best of their opportunity. So I guess the big thing now is, can they keep it up, and can William Karlsson obtain himself a longer-term contract by sustaining this level of play? Obviously, just like yesterday's with Mark Stone's deal, because it's a one-year deal, they cannot immediately start working on a longer-term extension. When you're in a one-year contract, the season has to be at least half over, so it cannot be extended until at least January the 1st. They can certainly hold talks ahead of time. Obviously, there's lots of times when it comes to contracts, verbal agreements might be put in place, but they can't put pen to paper till at least January 1 on an extension. Now, his previous 2 seasons in Columbus, he put up 25 points. The year before that, he put up 20 points. So obviously, this was a huge breakout year for William Karlsson. So I want to hear from you down in the comments. Can William Karlsson keep up this level of play and be a consistent 40-goal guy, or at least close to that, and put up 75 to 80 points here yet again with another strong year, being a leading player here for the Vegas Golden Knights? So I want to hear your thoughts down below, and we can continue that discussion. So that brings the conclusion to all the RFAs that have arbitration rights. They're all looked after and have contracts in place. There are still many notable RFAs, though, who are yet to be signed, that have yet to earn their arbitration rights. To have that right, you do have to have 4 years of experience in the NHL. But there's still a number of key players out there that are working on getting contracts, including Dylan Larkin, Andre Kasha, William Nylander. Toronto's another big name out there as well. There's been lots of talk around him and if he's going to get a long-term deal, short-term deal. He's been quoted to say that he's kind of letting his agent and Kyle Dubas look after that, and he's not too worried about it. So we'll see what kind of contract he ends up getting. You've also got guys like Darnell Nurse, Sam Reinhart, Josh Morrissey. So, I mean, obviously, there's plenty of other key names out there. So, we'll see what happens here. There will be still some signing news over the next couple of weeks here. Hopefully, all these guys can get this sorted out before training camp kicks off so that it's not a distraction to them or their team and does not hinder their training camp to get underway to get ready for the 18-19 season. So, here's a couple additional notes here on the Jeff Skinner trade. Obviously, we're about a day and a half removed now from that trade going down Thursday evening. Obviously, it's no shock that Jeff Skinner was traded. It did come as a little bit of a surprise to when and where it happened, obviously on Thursday night. I know earlier, a few hours before it happened, there was some speculation about the Sabres and Carolina talking. So I knew this was a possibility, but I wasn't sure it was going to be consummated quite so quickly. But I think they had talks off and on. A couple things here just to note. One, Jeff Skinner did have a no trade clause, so he did have a lot of control over this deal. I mean, I obviously on this channel have publicly said here that I'm not a fan of the deal for Carolina. I really think Buffalo really get a fantastic deal. Now, obviously, the prospect that they sent to Carolina does look to have some potential. He's done well in the OHL, but still, he's at least 2 or 3 years away from having an NHL impact. The draft picks involved with the trade as well, one's in 2019, two's in 2020. They're not first-round picks as well, so obviously, typically those players do, most of the time at least, take longer to have a shot at the NHL. So we're probably looking at 3 to 4 years before any of the pieces going to the Hurricanes have an impact on their roster. So that's why I wasn't a fan of the Jeff Skinner trade. Obviously, I think the Hurricanes just took a step back in their goal scoring, took a step back in their offense. Yes, they've made some moves in the back end. They do have a pretty solid-looking blue line. They could have held on to Skinner. He could have played out the season, helped the team, get a few more wins, and maybe trade him at the deadline if they weren't looking to make the playoffs. So either way, they made it clear they were not interested in re-signing Jeff Skinner. They were not discussing an extension. That could have been a combination of the team and the player, but it does sound like it was more so on the team's side. Now, another quick note here as well. Obviously, because of the trade and the fact that they didn't take any salary on, there's no roster contracts coming back immediately to Carolina. That obviously did trigger a lot of talk and speculation around the Hurricanes, around Tom Dundon as an owner and Don Waddell as a general manager. So I thought this quote from Tom Dundon was rather interesting, so I'm going to put it up here on the screen and read through it here with you, and you can let me know what you think down in the comments. Here is the quote from Dundon. He says, "This was not money motivated. This was simply that we think the team has a better chance to perform at the level we think it can perform at right now." Does that make any sense to you for those of you watching right now? Really, honestly, Jeff Skinner comes out of the lineup, a proven 30-goal guy, at times more than 30 goals, and removing him and not adding anybody who can play today is going to help them play at the level that they think they can play at now. So that tells me that they're trying to get worse. This is like another version of Team Tank, if you will. I think Carolina almost sounds to me like they don't want to do well next year. This just seems really weird. I don't know how, as an owner, you can say removing a 30-35 goal scorer without getting anything that goes on your roster immediately is anything but a salary dump when you come out and say that you think that is going to make you better and play to the level you think you can play at today. So obviously that level can't be too high of a standard, in my opinion. So I know there's a lot of speculation out there, which I'm not going to jump on right now, that Dundon really doesn't want to keep the team in Carolina, and that he does have to for a period of time here to fulfill his agreement when he bought the team. But in a couple of years' time, maybe they could be on the move. I feel bad for Hurricanes fans here because I know that's not the kind of chatter you want to hear. I'm sure, listening to potential rumors about the team leaving or ownership, and trust me, I understand what it's like to go through as a fan base with that, and it's not fun, it's not pleasant. But when your owner is making these kind of quotes and making these types of moves, you can't help but question their motives longer term here. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments here. Was this anything more than a salary dump? Like, what do you think of this Dundon quote? I mean, obviously, how can they possibly be performing at the level they think they can perform at unless that standard has dropped and they don't want to be as good next season? Now let's jump in here to a couple of other trade rumor updates. Obviously, some of these guys have been in the rumor mill for quite some time, and I come across some interesting articles that I thought could add some updates to some of these players, including a Carolina Hurricane, the guy who has not been moved yet, Justin Faulk. Obviously, here's another interesting quote, this one from General Manager Don Waddell, who, by the way, I know some people refer to him as the relocation specialist due to his time in Atlanta, which is why when he was named General Manager, honestly, I just didn't have a lot of faith in how this team is being run, and I'd like to see the team succeed in Carolina. But in all honesty, I do have concerns over his ability to lead a team. Now, on the business side of things, he did do better on that side, but as a general manager making moves, I don't know. I mean, we'll see anyways as time goes on here. But here's the quote from Waddell. "We never wanted to trade Justin Faulk. People assumed when we picked up Dougie Hamilton, we were heading in that direction. Well, I, for one, can say that this is not the case. I heard an interview with Don Waddell on NHL Network Radio myself, where he was specifically asked if they were looking to move Justin Faulk and Jeff Skinner, and he openly said that they were, that they wanted to change to how the team played, they wanted to change the team's identity, they wanted to kind of do like a full overhaul, and they felt like giving those guys a fresh start with other clubs were something that was important not only to their team, but to those players as well. So he's kind of backtracking here. Personally, this tells me that I think the return on Faulk, like the offers that they might have been receiving, just are not good enough. So they're obviously being patient, which is a good thing. But at the same time here, they're probably just another tactic to try to drive up the trade value. Maybe he thinks if he makes other teams believe that they're more partial to keeping him, that they need to ante up the price here in order to make it happen. So that very well could be. I just thought it was another interesting quote out of Carolina. I do get the impression Tom Dundon was interested in cutting salary. Faulk makes a decent salary. They have lots of defensemen, so it only makes sense that this is something that they really do want to do. I did come across another article who did indicate as well, kind of going through some trade scenarios. I don't think you can kind of classify these as, for sure rumors that are being discussed. However, I do think you can classify this as kind of something that the Hawks should look at, and in his opinion, something that would make sense for them is that if they obviously the Hawks would like to move Artemi Panarin as part of a deal to acquire a defenseman, especially a right-shot defenseman who can play with Duncan Keith. So obviously that's a salary going out, so they'd have to sweeten the pot a little bit, and obviously they seem like we're reluctant to trade Nick Schmaltz, which I don't blame them. I know based on a lot of your feedback when we discussed any potential Chicago trades before, Schmaltz seems to be, a hands-off approach, which I understand as well. He's a good young player. You should probably want to hang on to him. But maybe they would consider putting in Dylan Sakura along with Anisimov in return for Justin Faulk and maybe something else, maybe it's a draft pick or maybe a prospect or something of that nature to kind of make a deal work to kind of land Justin Faulk, who could kind of work well, hopefully, with Duncan Keith and shore up that back end a little bit, at least on an offensive side of it. I mean, Justin Faulk was okay defensively, but as we know, it's not his strong suit. Offense and power play time is more his specialty. So if you're a Hawks fan or a Canes fan, how would you feel about that trade? So now we're going to loop back here and discuss Artemi Panarin of the Columbus Blue Jackets. As we know, has been in the rumor mill ever since it came to light that he wasn't interested in signing an extension with Columbus. I referenced an article here from The Athletic, Scott Powers, who indicated that Panarin might be interested in heading back to Chicago. Now, I don't know who his sources are, but as we've discussed here before, and this comes from other people who have closer inside sources, saying that Panarin would welcome a move back to Chicago either through trade this season, or if not through free agency next offseason. Obviously, he had a great time playing there, played well with Patrick Kane, and he would certainly welcome a return to Chicago. I think if that were to happen, that would more than likely end up with going through free agency myself, because I would have to pay a big price tag to bring him back through trade this year, and I'm just not sure that would be the greatest move. I mean, yes, it'd be nice to get him back, but at the same time, you're going to have to give up a bundle to get him. So it might be better to take your chances to land him through free agency. Now, another team that I've seen through the comments and that I've seen through other speculation, more so fans saying, talking about, trade proposals, is I think another potential landing spot for him would be the New York Rangers as well. Yes, I know they're going through a bit of a rebuild right now, but at the same time, a player like that could certainly accelerate it. And he seemed interested. All the speculation around Panarin, which nobody can really confirm 100%, is that he wanted to play in a bigger market. So obviously, you can't get much bigger than the Big Apple in New York City. So we'll see what happens here. But for right now, this looks as though Panarin would welcome a trade back to Chicago, or he'd be very interested in heading back there through free agency, according to Scott Powers, sources of The Athletic here, which we've discussed here before. I just wanted to give you that new information, that it does seem as though that's something he is definitely interested in. But as far as when he's going to be traded or if, it's really hard to say. I don't think we can completely rule out a move to stay with Columbus, but right now things are not looking good in that manner. But until we get more information and see how things go this season, it's hard to say for certain. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Artemi Panarin situation here. Do you think a move back to Chicago is more likely through trade or free agency? And if it was going to be through trade, what do you think would be a fair price to get him out of Columbus? As a Hawks fan, I'd like to know what you'd be okay giving up to make the bread man return to Chicago. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button as well. I'd really appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.